Imagine you are standing at a busy bus stop, or perhaps you are sitting in a cozy neighborhood cafe. Next to you is someone who looks friendly. Maybe they are reading a book you've heard of, or perhaps they're just waiting, like you. You feel that little spark of curiosity. You want to say something, to practice your English, or simply to be social. But then that familiar feeling hits you. Your throat feels tight, and your mind goes completely blank. You ask yourself, what do I say? How do I even begin? If this has happened to you, don't worry, you are definitely not alone. Even native speakers sometimes feel nervous about starting a conversation with a stranger. But here is the secret. Starting a conversation is a skill, just like riding a bike or cooking a meal. It isn't about having perfect grammar or a massive vocabulary. It's about being observant, being kind, and having a few simple keys to unlock the silence. Today, we are going to look at those keys. My goal is to give you practical, simple tools so that the next time you're in that cafe or at that bus stop, you can breathe deeply and say those first few words with confidence. Let's start with what I call the golden rule of conversation: observe and comment. Think about it this way. You and the other person are in the same place at the same time. You are already sharing an experience. This is the easiest bridge you can build. You don't need to think of a deep or complex topic. You just need to notice something neutral about the world around you. The weather is the most classic example for a reason. It's something everyone experiences. Instead of just saying, it's raining, try making it a bit more social. You could say, nice weather, isn't it, if the sun is out? Or, it's quite chilly today, don't you think, if it's cold? By adding that little isn't it or don't you think at the end, you are inviting the other person to agree with you. It's an easy yes for them. But you don't have to stop at the weather. Look at your environment. If you're in a coffee shop, you might say, this cafe has great music. I really like the vibe here. Or if you're in a small shop, you could mention, I love the decoration in here. It's very unique. If you're at an art gallery or a museum, you have a perfect opportunity. You can point to a piece and say, that's a beautiful painting. Do you happen to know the artist? The key here is to keep it light and positive. When you start with something positive, people feel more comfortable opening up. Avoid complaining about things right away, as that can sometimes create a heavy mood. Just look around, find one small thing you like or notice, and share that thought out loud. Once you've made that first comment, the next step is to keep the momentum going. This is where the power of simple questions comes in. There is a big difference between a closed question and an open-ended question. A closed question is one that can be answered with a simple yes or no. For example, do you like this coffee? The person says yes, and then the silence returns. Instead, try to ask questions that encourage the other person to tell you a bit more. These are your what, how, and why questions. At an event or a party, a great opener is, what brings you here today? This gives the person a chance to tell you about their connection to the host or their interest in the event. If you are at a cafe, instead of asking if they like the coffee, try, how do you like the coffee here? I'm thinking of trying something new next time. Or if you see them sitting in a spot you've never noticed before, you might ask, have you been here before? It's my first time and I'm really enjoying it. Another great way to start is by asking for a recommendation. People generally love to share their opinions. You could ask, do you have any recommendations for food around here? Or, I'm looking for a good book to read next. What are you reading? The most important part of asking a question isn't actually the question itself. It's the listening that follows. When the other person speaks, listen actively. If they say they've been to the cafe many times because they live nearby, that gives you a new topic, the neighborhood. You can follow up with, oh, you live nearby? What's your favorite thing about this area? One question leads to an answer, and that answer leads to your next question. It's like a gentle game of catch. Now, let's talk about a very popular but slightly tricky way to start: compliments. A genuine compliment is like a gift. It makes the other person feel good and immediately creates a positive connection. However, we have to use compliments with a little bit of caution. In English-speaking cultures, it is usually best to compliment things that people have chosen, like their clothes, their accessories, or their work, rather than their physical appearance. For example, if you see someone with a cool backpack, you could say, "I really like your bag. It's very stylish. Where did you get it?" This is a great opener because it's a compliment followed by a question. Or if you see someone reading a book with a beautiful cover, you might say, "That's an interesting book you're reading. The cover caught my eye." Later on, once the conversation has already started and you've been talking for a few minutes, you can compliment their personality or skills. If they tell a funny story, you can say, "You have a great sense of humor." This helps build a deeper rapport. The main role for compliments is to keep them respectful and appropriate for the situation. If you're in a professional setting, stick to complimenting someone's presentation or their insight on a topic. If you're in a casual setting, focus on their style or their choices. A sincere compliment, given with a smile, is one of the fastest ways to turn a stranger into an acquaintance. But what if you feel too shy to give a compliment? There is another very natural way to engage someone that feels very low pressure: asking for help or information. As humans, we are naturally wired to be helpful. Most people feel a small sense of pride when they can provide an answer or give directions. This makes it a perfect, no-stress way to start a conversation. You can start very simply. "Excuse me, do you know what time it is?" Or, "Excuse me, do you happen to know if the bus has passed yet?" Even if you already know the answer, these questions are great icebreakers. They get the other person talking to you in a way that feels very safe. If you are in a new city, you can ask, "Could you tell me how to get to the nearest metro station?" Once they give you directions, you can extend the interaction by saying, "Thank you so much. I'm actually new here. Do you have any suggestions for a good restaurant nearby?" See how that works? You started with a simple request for information, and then you use their answer to move into a more social topic. It feels natural because you are acknowledging their expertise as a local or as someone who knows the area. It takes the pressure off you to be interesting and puts the focus on the other person being helpful. So you've used your key, you've opened the door, and you've been talking for a minute or two. Now what? How do you keep the conversation moving so it doesn't just stop after the first 60 seconds? This is where we use small talk topics. These are safe, neutral subjects that most people enjoy talking about. Hobbies are a wonderful topic, but try to keep the questions light at first. Instead of a heavy question like, "What is your life's passion?" try something like, "What do you like to do in your free time?" Or, "Have you seen any good movies lately?" Travel is another universal topic. Most people have somewhere they've been or somewhere they want to go. You could ask, "Have you traveled much recently?" Or, "If you could go anywhere for a weekend, where would you go?" Food is perhaps the safest topic of all. Everyone eats. You can ask about local cuisine. "Are you a fan of the food around here?" Or, "Have you tried that new Italian place down the street?" Current events can also work, but stay on the neutral side. Talk about a local festival, a new park opening, or a big sports game that happened over the weekend. Avoid controversial topics like politics, religion, or personal finances. Those topics are like deep water. You want to stay in the shallow, sunny end of the pool when you're just starting out. The goal of small talk isn't to have a deep philosophical debate. The goal is to see if you and the other person click. It's about finding common ground. If they mention they love hiking and you love hiking too, suddenly you aren't just two strangers talking about the weather, you're two hikers sharing a conversation. As we get closer to the end of our time today, I want to talk about something very important: the fear of making mistakes. I know it can be scary. You might worry that you will use the wrong verb tense, or that your pronunciation won't be perfect, or that you'll forget a word in the middle of a sentence. But here is the truth. Practice is the only way to get better. Think about when you see someone learning your native language. Do you get angry when they make a mistake? Of course not. Usually you feel a lot of respect for them because they are trying. You appreciate the effort they are making to connect with you. The same is true for the people you will meet. Most people are friendly and will be happy that you reached out to them. Mistakes are not failures. They are just signs that you are learning. Every time you have a 5-second conversation with a barista or a 2-minute chat with a neighbor, your brain is getting stronger. You are building muscle memory for the English language. If you forget a word, just describe it. If you meant to say stapler but forgot the word, you can say the thing that puts papers together. People will understand you, and often they will help you find the word you're looking for. This actually makes the conversation more collaborative and friendly. So let's quickly recap the tools we've put in our conversation toolbox today. First, remember the golden rule: observe and comment. Use the world around you to build a bridge. Second, use the power of simple, open-ended questions. Ask what and how instead of just yes or no. Third, give genuine, non-personal compliments. Focus on things people have chosen, like their style or their work. Fourth, don't be afraid to ask for help or information. It's a natural, low-pressure way to start. And finally, use small talk topics like hobbies, travel, and food to keep the fire burning. My challenge for you today is simple. Try just one of these techniques. You don't have to have a 20-minute discussion. Just try one observe and comment at the grocery store, or ask one small talk question to a colleague. Connecting with others is one of the greatest joys of life, and doing it in a second language is a huge achievement. You have the tools, you have the skills, and most importantly, you have something valuable to say. English is just the bridge that helps you share who you are with the rest of the world. So take a deep breath, put a smile on your face, and go out there. The world is full of interesting people, just waiting for someone to say hello. You've got this.